Alrighty, welcome one and all to the brand new reimagined Friendly Fire. This new concept will be a 3 to 5 panelist discussion show where each week we will talk about a certain topic, which I will reveal the very first topic shortly. First of all, I will introduce this week's panelists. First up, we have Christy Brood.
Hello.
Running the wrestling. The 2020 wrestling, sorry.
Correct.
On Wednesday nights here in Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance.
10:30 p.m. Australian time and 8:30 a.m. East Coast USA time of a Wednesday. Check it out.
A lot of fun.
Shameful plug.
What was that?
Said shameful plug.
Shameful. Oh, you're entitled to it.
Thank
Next up is Piers Austin, host of Shooting the Shit.
What's up, guys? What's up? Thank you, Andrew, for having me on this panel. It's a great honor to be on the new revamped Friendly Fire. I'm excited. I'm excited about the topic we're going to discuss. And also, I'm a little bit excited about later this evening as well, which is going to be early Saturday morning, which is going to be a late night for your boy Piers and your boy Chucky. Baby.
Might need to catch a nap between.
I think I might, where I sit down with the most controversial man in professional wrestling history. He's worked in WCW, WWE, TNA. He is Vince Russo, and we're gonna break the fucking internet. We're gonna break the fucking internet tonight.
Just don't bring up Cornette.
We're gonna break the internet while keeping our clothes on.
Well, you know what? That's one thing that I do have Mark to ask him about. So
I'll be sure to tune in. Hopefully,
I hope so.
Next up, we have our other
admin.
Admin. Charles, Chucky baby. How you doing?
How are we? I thought you were going to save the best for last, but that's all right. Bring me on now. No. Don't get me fucking started. I'll shut this fucking show down now.
Oh,
how are we?
I'd like to see you try, brother.
Oh, fuck. It's already getting off to a bad start for me.
Last but not least, we have a special American guest, Mikey Bada Bing. Michael Mados, how you doing?
I'm good, sir. Thank you for having me on your show. And yes, you did save the best for last. My name is Mikey Bada Bing, a.k.a. Mike Murder. I am a promo artist over at the VOH. And once again, thank you for having me on, good sir.
And Mikey is our new admin as well. Recently promoted from moderator to admin, and we are pleasure to have you here, sir.
Somebody's got to run the page during the day.
Ooh.
I thought you were going to say something else.
So anyway, the topic in today's line of fire is the resurgence of American pro wrestling in Australia. Now, wrestling used to be big here in Australia in the 60s and 70s with WCW Australia events televised on our TV screens for many years with big-name stars such as Killer Kowalski, Gorilla Monsoon, and Bruno Sammartino, just to name a few. These events ceased in 1978 due to the introduction of other sporting events being given television contracts. So wrestling lay dormant here for almost 20 years. The mid-90s came and we saw the resurgence of the big American wrestling shows being televised here in Australia on free-to-air and pay TV stations from this time onwards. And we will be discussing the rise in popularity of wrestling through this time, the shows that we had televised, and the subsequent live touring events here in Australia. So the 90s resurgence, the first memories I have really was WCW on Channel 9, and Channel 10 had WWF Superstars, and Raw and SmackDown were available on our pay TV Foxtel system. We got these shows after the Monday Night Wars started and midway through the Attitude Era. So starting with Christy and going clockwise, what are your memories of these shows at the time? And perhaps you can list 2 favourite storylines from the Attitude Era or the Monday Night Wars.
Okay. My memory is I remember being in high school. That's right, high school. I'm 30, turning 36 this month. So yeah, back in high school, I remember we had Superstars, and it was at midnight of a Sunday, and it was only highlights of Raw, and so I remember so many times I'd forget to tape it, and it'd be like 12:15 at night, and I'd be in bed, and I'd be like, "Fuck!" I'd run out, quickly start like taping it because I had to go to school the next day, and then so tape it. But like I loved getting that because we couldn't afford Foxtel. So for me, that was like, and we didn't have the internet properly sort of back then. So for me, that was my big sort of latch onto it. And it was like, the happiest times, basically. It was the Sunday night getting that little 1 hour highlight package. That's where I I think actually I remember it maybe being on about I think 8:30 for like a few weeks. And then I think they bumped it up. Because I remember watching it earlier in the night once and seeing The Rock and going, "Oh, he's pretty cool." And then later in the episode, I saw The Undertaker and I fell in love. I fell in love. But yeah, so anything, and then I was a gothic teenager, although ironic. So the whole ministry storyline, I sort of really latched onto and stuff. So yeah, for me, it was all Taker, all ministry. And then of course I think the same with Piers as well, with getting the pay-per-views on VHS at the video shop. There'd only ever be one copy of each pay-per-view, and you had to get in there quick. They had this little section. I'd always run to the back of the shop and go, "Yeah, here's the wrestling. Okay, I've seen this one. I haven't seen that one." And yeah, that was like my joy for the weekend.
Nice. Any particular storyline memories or anything?
I think like there was some things like I was really into it. It's just one thing that's popped in my mind. Like I probably wasn't quite. I still probably believed a lot of it. For example, I remember the Big Show getting the Titantron and him sort of standing there, him pulling the Titantron down, and I was like, "Oh my god, he's pulling down the Titantron!" and sort of like believing that he really did it. But yeah, no, it was such a classic time, with, Taker and Kane and Stone Cold and Triple H, The Rock, like, it was the epitome of like all things great in wrestling in that time. But yeah, so all the ministry stuff, him abducting people, and the Brood. God, how could I forget the Brood? Like, nickname Brood. I stole it from them. Don't tell anyone.
So that's a self-appointed nickname, is it?
Yes. Well, self-appointed.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was a teenager.
I'm gonna give myself a self-appointed nickname. Is that cool?
I was a
As long as
teenager.
it's dickhead, you're good to go.
Oh, ouch.
Quick story.
Ooh, that's not nice.
And Yahoo Chat just came in and on the internet, and I needed an ID username, and I was watching wrestling at the time, and I was like, I need a name, and I saw the Brood on TV, and I loved them, and I was like, what if I had Brood? And I'm like, wait, I need like a catchy. I was like, Brood chick, no, Brood girl, no. I was like, Brood babe, and I'm like, all right. So technically, the nickname was Brood babe, and then that became my gamer tag on Xbox, and then it just
That's good ass.
Brood. Then I made a business with it. So yeah, Brood's been around for like 20 plus years.
Wow.
But yeah, some people call me Brood, some people call me Black, some call me Christy. They all have their own personality. I'll shut up and let somebody else talk for a moment.
Piers, go.
So, my earliest memory of wrestling, I was probably about 3 or 4 years old, and I remember seeing Hulk Hogan for the first time, and it was when he just won the title, and it was kind of like WrestleMania '85, and I remember my older cousins had a tape of WrestleMania, and I was watching it with them. And I remember seeing Hulk and just being captivated, like that. I was hooked. And for years, when I was like really young, I used to watch it. WCW used to be on Channel 9 when I was about 10 years old. But then wrestling kind of fell away for a few years. Like it just wasn't on television here in Australia. We didn't have like WCW, WWF. And there was no internet back then. So it's not like we could have like the world at our fingertips like we do now. But, once wrestling sort of came back in, like for me, I I would actually go, and I remember my parents taking me to Aussie indie shows, and I thought that was the only wrestling. I thought every other I didn't know. I was just a kid, but for me, when I became a teenager, and I think it was around 97, like early 97, I started seeing this guy drinking beer, swearing, flipping people off, and that 97, 98, that Stone Cold Steve Austin character. And for me, that was someone, I was an angsty kid, like I was that punk rock kid, that sort of, fuck society type of kid, you know what I mean? Like the world, like fuck the world type of shit. So to me, well, but to me, like that was like I like imagine that, telling your boss to fuck off and giving him the finger. And I was drawn to Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he had the same last name as me, and I went around my school telling everyone that that's my Uncle Steve. But no one believed it. But and that to me, like the best angles, I would have to say, for me would have been, the Austin versus McMahon angle. That's probably the greatest rivalry in professional wrestling history, or one of. I'm going to stand corrected, because there's been many great angles, but that was, or rivalries, but that's up there as one of the greats. And to me, that storyline, that went on for years. And then when Austin finally, that handshake, when he's standing in the middle of the ring with Vince and he turned, I remember sitting there watching that, even though like I was much older at that time. I was like, what the fuck? Stone Cold turned like heel, like what the fuck? But no, like that to me, like that Austin McMahon rivalry.
That was pretty epic. I think it's like you related to it as well as like how I related with Undertaker and the whole Ministry Gothic stuff.
But you know what, Andrew, you mentioned like WCW from Australia in the 60s and 70s. I've gone back and I've watched some of that stuff, and we had a lot of greats come through this country back then as well. Dominic DeNucci, Johnny Rods came down here. Who else was down here?
Mario Milano.
Mario Milano, who's an Australian icon from professional wrestling,
and who's actually helped create some of the local indie companies around Australia.
Yeah, he has. So, we've definitely had a very rich history of professional wrestling in our country with professional wrestlers. And I think Australia now has really been put on the map as far as professional wrestling, where you just look at WWE. In WWE in the last, 2 years, we've had Australians hold titles in the WWE. That's huge. That's huge for us.
Who would have thought that back in the mid-90s?
Never. Like I when I was a teenager, I was like, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be a pro wrestler. I'm going to be the first WWF World Heavyweight Champion. That was my dream as a 15-year-old kid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything else, Piers, or should we move on to Charles?
No, move on. Sorry, I just kept going.
That's all right.
I just rant, bro.
I did the same. But I just asked Mikey, where's Gertrude?
Gertrude is laying on top of the countertop vending machine that I'm working on. She's looking at me. I'm sorry I left for a second. The dog, my dog has they're called mid seizures, and she just had one, so I had to hop off real quick and take care of it. So, but she's good. I'm back. Let's run it.
Hi,
I might have
Gertrude.
to talk to you about that actually later, because I think my dog's got something like that, and I'd like an opinion of someone who's dealing with that shit.
Get a hold of me after, absolutely.
Yeah, completely off topic, but yeah, that's handy. Yep. Oh, right. Fuck. Sorry. Okay. What are we talking about again? So
your earliest memories of wrestling and your greatest angles.
So I'm kind of different to all you guys. I was born in '95, so my first memories were, Jesus Christ, they're all choppy. I mean, so we had Foxtel on and off, which is like, for any Americans out there, it's just our cable. We had Foxtel on and off for fucking years, and I don't remember the specifics of when we had it, when we didn't have it, but I would watch. We always had a lot of Simpsons, and following the Simpsons was a lot of wrestling. And I just remember probably the very earliest memory of mine is, I don't know whether it was 99 or 2000, but I was so young, I don't remember the specifics, but just sitting there watching The Simpsons all morning on a Saturday and a Sunday, and then following that was always wrestling. I don't know the specific year that came in, but like that started. But they're my earliest memories.
I think that was around. I think that was around the early 2000s, like 2003.
Yeah. So there was definitely that. Like we definitely had. So we had family members. I don't know. My uncle was a big wrestling fan. He would always videotape, like with his VCR player. He'd videotape everything for us, and like we'd go to his and we'd watch it, or like we'd go. My mum's from overseas, so we'd go over to the UK, and one of her friends loved wrestling, so we would watch it. But being a 3, 4, 5-year-old kid, you don't remember a whole lot,
Yeah.
And I wish I could, because it would be a whole lot easier answering these questions. But so for me, my earliest, like I think my biggest fandom was probably a couple of years after the Attitude Era. But looking back at it from a set of eyes, like from my perspective, obviously growing up with the Ruthless Aggression Era following into what we've got now, I kind of look back and it's kind of funny. I enjoy the big storylines of Stone Cold, The Rocks and all that. That's all great. But to me, something that I think's been lacking in wrestling in general for years after, up until today, is not so much the main event players. They've always got guys that you can put on top, but it's that mid-card. And so now when I look back and watch a lot of these Attitude Era shows, and this goes to WCW, but more specifically WWF in that Russo era, who we're going to be talking to later on tonight, that period where you could watch, I could watch Al Snow and Road Dogg go at it, and then watch Big Boss Man and Big Show, and then Billy Gunn. But Billy Gunn's one of my favorite wrestlers ever, which is, I don't think many people would say that. But as a guy, I thought he was fantastic. So going back and watching all that, it's such an enjoyable time, because there's the Austins and the Rocks, and that's all great. But like to me, that's not the special part of the show. The special part of the show to me is watching the guys, the workhorses, go out and do what they do, and be given the chance to do it in a meaningful way, as opposed to today where I'm sure we're going to get to it, but it's just, hey, let's go out there and wrestle, and no one's giving us a storyline, so I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah.
So that's me.
That's fair.
Now, Mikey, being that you're obviously not Australian, you can't really answer any of those things. But what are your thoughts and opinions that essentially here in Australia we missed out on so many great talent and storylines previous to this?
Right, man. I've had wrestling my whole life, man. From farthest I can remember, sitting with my grandfather, watching Sheik and Hulk Hogan and all that. I got all that, during my life, and I don't know, man. I grew up with mainly the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era was my go-to from day one. Just like Pierce, man, I'm a huge Stone Cold Steve Austin fan. I mean, Christ, I got him tattooed on my leg. He I don't know. He was the badass that the wrestling at the time needed, and it caught on to me, from catching beers midair to what everybody wants to do, kick their boss's ass. Like, let's be real here. The guy was the armpit of the company in the Attitude Era. So mainly the Attitude Era was what built me. And like I said, man, it was wrestling nonstop. I got all of it. From, like you said, recording on VCR when my grandfather couldn't watch it. He had it on the VHS tapes all the way to like the beta. Before the VCR was even made, there was a beta he would record wrestling off of. So I was born in the 80s. I got to watch some of the betas from like the 70s, which was absolutely awesome. So in my household, it was nonstop wrestling. Like everything was wrestling. So I remember as a kid, mom making supper and where everybody crowd out in the living room. Wrestling was coming on. It was always. I'm waking up watching wrestling. I'm going to sleep watching wrestling, and it continues today. So wrestling over here there was no boundaries. It was everywhere. So and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate you guys over there got to miss some of the awesome stuff that happened.
Well, we pretty much got like we didn't get wrestling from, like, we missed the Bret Hart era, the early Shawn Michaels era. That time, like the probably 93, like probably, I mean, like we got WCW sporadically where we couldn't really follow the storylines. Like we'd probably get, like when Nitro came out, that was what we'd see, but it'd be like one episode every couple of weeks.
I think it was like 98, 99 is really
wow.
when WWF.
What was the?
It was 97. 97 was on Foxhole, yeah.
But
So
I'm free
back
to
in
wear
like
it.
so
And when I
that
figured
period
out
where
what
obviously we
when I figured out
Go
what
on.
pay-per-view meant, woo, and how easy it was to order it. Shit. My dad, like we got that, my parents got that bill quarterly, and it was like
oof,
it
good
was
lord.
probably like it was probably like $25-$30 a pay-per-view. And like, you know what I mean? Like you think of it, like you think of it now that we're adults when you got a budget and have all this sort of shit planned out. But as a kid, you're like,
Fuck.
I don't give a fuck, like, you know. And like my dad's like, what the fuck? There's like $150 of fucking pay-per-view, and because you know, like I'd have to get both WCW and WWF pay-per-views.
Yeah,
So it was
of
like
course.
$50 a month, like $150. Yeah, he wasn't impressed. But
What
And
did
then
you
only
do?
got it 24 hours. That was stupid. I'm like, I've paid money for this. Let me have it for like a week. Like, I should own this now. No,
Yeah.
24, 48 hours. Oh, it was gone. I'm like, fuck that.
yeah,
What were you going to say, Charles?
I was going to say, because obviously I was not born until 95. So, like, that sort of late 80s, early 90s period where it wasn't on TV, or that whole stretch it wasn't on TV, I'm not sure when video stores became fashionable, but when that was all going on, did you guys, like, were you still able to get the pay-per-views on VHS and rent them out, or was that, you couldn't even do that?
no, you could go to VHS stores and you'd be able to
Mhm.
get wrestling videos.
Video easy.
Yeah. Like
So-
home, what is it, Coliseum videos?
Yeah.
Or was it the actual pay-per-views?
No, you could get pay-per-views, but it might be like 6,
Okay.
8 months after the fact.
Mm.
Sometimes
gotcha.
a year
But we
after the
get-
fact.
King of
But-
the Ring and No Way Out and, you know, like those ones. But yeah, that was
Yeah.
fun to find. And they
Yeah.
didn't always come out like
Yeah.
at the same time. It's like in order and yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like I actually thought back then that every wrestling promotion was the same, was just the one wrestling promotion. Like I was getting tapes
Gotcha.
from Mick Foley wrestling in the UWF, and I thought, oh, that's
Right.
Cactus Jack wrestling. Oh, WWE looks a bit. Oh, F back in time
Yeah.
looks a bit small. And same with ECW. I didn't comprehend. Like once I figured out, oh,
Yeah.
ECW. This isn't WWF. Okay, now. And then when I figured that out, you know, when I was a kid,
It all
You
started
know,
clicking.
yeah. But I remember like 12, 13 years old, I was like getting ECW tapes and they were like fucking ECW was like hen's teeth. All right. So as soon as
Yeah.
the net, like I had, I think 2 VHS ECW tapes and they were from
Mhm.
99 and I had and 1 DVD. And that was anything that you could find in Australia. And that was like,
Good lord.
like that was impossible to find. And, you know, that's why I got into tape trading and stuff like that, as everyone knows. And
Yeah.
no, not tape trading, but I was calling up and buying. I was
Yeah.
calling, like Combat Zone, you know, wrestling in the States and ordering tapes because I was only internet ordering. And then I was also calling like XPW offices and like, you know, getting tapes on that. So I, you know, for me, I've always been that big indie guy, as everyone knows. Like I like the
Yeah.
smaller promotions. I like the passion that those fans have at some of those little promotions. You know,
Mhm.
like you just don't get that in the WWE.
No.
Yeah.
thing. But anyway, I'm going off topic, so I apologize.
That's all right. So a few of my earliest memories was I know I've spoken this elsewhere. I think 98. I think it was a Survivor Series. I've just had a mental blank. I think it was Survivor Series, and we actually got that on free to air Channel 10. And I can remember, you know, seeing it in the TV guide, and there was nothing else on. I thought, oh, yeah, I'll stay up and watch this. And there was The Rock and Mankind in the main event, I think it was, and that Vince and that screwed Mankind and gave The Rock the title. And fair enough. Thank you, Angel. I'll take that as a compliment.
Oh fuck!
Take that
I
as a
don't want to know what
compliment.
Angel thinks I look like. Good god!
Oh shit, Angel's here.
Fuck.
my boy,
Thank-
my boy Angel. He's one of my very good friends, man. I love that guy.
Thanks for joining us, Angel.
So go on,
So
Angel.
I can remember watching that, and then they would have WWF Superstars on late at night on the Sunday, and my first the memory that I can vividly recall from that was the Undertaker burning Steph's teddy bear and Vince bringing Vince down to his knees, and just that sort of villainous, what's going on, sort of made me hook on to Taker, and that fueled my love for Taker, I think. And I can remember after that I would go to the video stores and rent out these pay-per-views and some of the older stuff. I can remember watching VHS with highlight things of the Berserker, IRS, old school Midnight Rockers. I think it was Midnight Rockers, Sean and Marty. Some of their matches.
Yeah.
The Rockers.
The Rockers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting confused there. So that was sort of our
introduction.
Start to wrestling, I suppose.
Yeah.
And after that, we'll move on to the live tours. I think the first.
Thanks, Facebook user. Whereabouts are you from?
Click the link and let StreamYard access.
It's back again. Fuck.
Been watching heaps of WCCW since I injured my knee. Definitely some good stuff. Again, Facebook user, let us know who you are. And, I hope your knee's getting better.
Piers, I thought I was in control.
They were the Midnight Rockers before becoming the Rockers. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
So I was correct, Mark? Did I say Midnight Rockers? Or?
You did say Midnight Rockers. There you go.
I'm a smart one. So the first live tour that we got was WCW in 2000. They came down here and held Nitro and Thunder tapings in October of 2000, during which Juventud Guerrero, is that how you pronounce his name?
Guerrero.
He was arrested at the hotel in which the wrestlers were staying, and after an incident in which he was discovered naked and screaming in a hallway and then attacking police officers who had arrived to detain him. According to the 2004 book, The Death of WCW, Guerrero was reportedly under the influence of PCP. He was expelled from the remainder of the tour, and I can remember hearing about this at the time.
Also, he was so high, he was teaching Pac-Man how to eat lollies. He was just dropping them ecstasy tablets, son. He was high as a motherfucker. He crash tackled a female police officer when he was buck naked in a fucking hallway.
And this was in Australia.
Yes, sir.
What are you guys feeding?
If you're going to get kicked off tour for anything, you got to get kicked off tour for tackling a naked cop.
Not what we were feeding him. He was feeding himself ecstasy, son. He was just like this. He was high as a motherfucker.
Just fucking bang, 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 bang.
Not that I was there or anything, but fuck. that was the report.
I'll tell you what, though. I think you'd agree with this, Pierce. Pretty much any Saturday night, go down to Sydney or Melbourne, and you'll fucking see 400 fucking people doing that. So
yeah,
it's common now.
So do any of you others remember hearing about this or reading about this in the paper at the time?
I remember hearing.
I hadn't even hit high primary school yet.
I remember hearing about it and going, "Oh, fuck."
You're okay.
Sort of rub it in a little bit more.
But the thing is, like, that nearly fucking ended him, but he still came back years later.
And he was back this year. Literally in Australia.
No. But he went into he went into WWE after that.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying he's back. He 20 years later. How's that? Comes back for a fucking tour of Melbourne and Sydney.
Yeah, and you know what? I did tell everyone about talking about Hoovy about the XPW promo that he did. It's juicy time, baby. Fuck you 2 times. Fuck you once.
Oh, Christ.
It's crazy that you guys got live shows in the 2000s, like early 2000s, and I've been going to the WWE F at the time, the In Your Houses, like in the 90s, mid 90s, and I went to a bunch of them. Like it was just nonstop.
I got tickets to a few of the WCW shows when they were in Sydney. I think they did I think they did 3 shows in Sydney, and I went to 2 of those shows. I went to one of the house shows, and then I went to another show. they actually had an Australian kickboxer by the name of Sam Greco make his debut, and he was going to go on and be the man for Australia in wrestling, and just it never. I think WCW just went into shutdown. Like I think he was in training, and they just went, yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that because those episodes weren't on the network for a while, and I was fucking interested because like obviously I wasn't even aware that this shit was going on at the time, and so I wanted to watch them. And when that happened, it popped up, and I'm like, hang on, who the fuck is this guy? I did a little bit of reading into him, and fuck, just the right place, wrong time kind of thing for him.
Yeah, man.
Unfortunately.
And, you know, he who knows what could have happened there, but
those were great shows though. That was fun.
Yeah, but you know what? Like WWA, I think came out after that, which was around
We'll get to that.
Oh, sorry. I'll shut the fuck up.
This is my show, Piers. Back.
All right. Settle.
Who was the one that gave me the lecture before we went on? You know I love you, Piers. So also in 2000, we got Superstars of Wrestling. Was being a pay-per-view event held by iGeneration. I'm not sure what that was. I didn't get any information on that. Anyway, it took place on July 30th, 2000 and aired in the United States on December the 1st, 2000. Came from the Sydney Superdome in Sydney, Australia, with the subtitle Rodman Down Under. It was promoted largely for its main event, which pitted the scientific veteran Kurt Hennig against NBA star Dennis Rodman. That was being the main event, and another notable match from that, Road Warriors versus Public Enemy. And I can remember going to one of these. They had, I think it was this one. I remember going to one of them here in Adelaide. They had some house show tours around Australia. I remember going to, and seeing the Road Warriors live, and that was just
the Road Warrior pop.
Yeah, it was just amazing, and
what year was this?
2000.
2000, okay.
Did any of you others go to one of those events?
No, I didn't go.
No,
I didn't go to one of those events. I only went to, like I said, the WCW and the later mentioned WWA.
I think the WWE was the first one I went and saw, but I'll wait till later.
Man, seeing the Road Warriors live, that's one thing I wish I could have done.
It was
man,
it was amazing.
When you think
when you think about one of the most dominant tag teams in wrestling history, the first thing that pops in my head is always the Road Warriors.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sammy Russo says Sam Greco tripped over the top rope for the debut. Got too excited.
Oh, fuck.
Sammy is actually the promoter for the AWE here in Sydney.
Oh, hello.
Nice. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So next, we're getting to the WWA All-Stars, produced by World Wrestling All-Stars. First professional pay-per-view emanated from the Sydney Superdome on October 26, 2001. Broadcast live on pay-per-view here in Australia and via tape delay in the US on January 6, 2002. The event featured a 7 Deadly Sins tournament to crown a new world heavyweight champion after Road Dogg was stripped of the title. This is obviously after WCW folded and various stars leaving companies. Jeff Jarrett defeated Road Dogg in a steel cage match in the tournament final to win the title. The event also featured a ladder match in the first round of the 7 Deadly Sins tournament, in which Juventud Guerrera, back again, defeated Psychosis to win the vacant IC championship that they had. Other featured matches, Norman Smiley versus Crowbar in a hardcore match, and Gangrel versus Luna in a black wedding match. And just noting, they also toured house shows around Australia before the actual pay-per-view, and I was able to go to the show here in Adelaide, and it was interesting to see a different sort of sort of the bigger stars, but not as a WWE or WCW event. Your thoughts, Brood, and moving along to Piers and Charles?
Yeah, that was, I think, I can't believe it was 2001. Shit. I think that was my first actual wrestling event that I went to. I went to the Sydney one with my uncle because my mum didn't want me to go on my own because in case I got injured, being a female at a wrestling event back then. So yeah, went with my uncle, and I remember I think I was about 6 rows from the front. So I was really excited to be sort of, near the ring and everything. For me, I was mainly just going for Gangrel because of the whole Brood thing. It was from the Brood, and I was like, oh my god, I can see someone from the Brood. But yeah, I remember that their Black Wedding match was, I think they were just like, it was like a food fight, I think, if I remember correctly, or yeah, that was.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I should have looked at the photos before I did this. We did this actually. That would have been handy. But I do remember Jeff Jarrett. We had Rose McManus, who's a TV show host over here in Australia.
Yeah.
He was sort of like the host of the show in a way. And he came out on sitting because he's a shorter guy, a petite guy, and he came out sitting on the top of Nathan Jones's shoulder as they walked down to the ring. And at one point later in the show, Jeff Jarrett smashed his guitar over Rose McManus's head, and I have a piece of that guitar because
awesome.
I went up. It was on the
That's awesome.
Get fucked.
Mike is so big, his dog looks like he's holding a hamster.
Oh fuck.
I'm a big dude. I'm 6'3" and like 310 pounds. So yeah, I probably would agree.
Good lord.
Yeah, I'm a big boy.
So
I'm like the opposite to you.
yeah.
Piers and I are the same height. I know that.
And anyway,
What height is that?
Piers.
Just wondering.
So the WWA, I was at the pay-per-view. I was at the first show.
You were in Sydney?
I was there at the Sydney show, yeah.
Look at whereabouts were you sitting? I should go and look at the photos and we may have met or sat near each other like 20 years ago.
I have no idea. I have no idea where I was sitting. Like, fuck, I don't even remember the fucking arena it was at. But
I just imagine Piers being cockeyed the entire show.
I was
Few beers deep.
I was more than a few beers deep, mate. But yeah. So the WWA show, I remember. Like, the weird thing is the commentary was actually coming through the whole fucking PA system.
It was the only commentary we've ever had over here as
Yeah,
well.
like
Just-
I was like,
Because
yeah,
they're all
and they had
Just noting, was it Jerry the King Lawler was one of the commentators?
Jerry
Yep.
the King Lawler and I
Jeremy
think it was
Borash.
Mike
Oh
Tenay.
wow.
I think it was Mike
Oh,
Tenay, wasn't it? Mike Tenay, yeah. I think it might have been Mike
Might have
Tenay.
been.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a solid show, man. But it just felt like WCW light.
Mm.
You know, like, if I'm being honest, like, it was a solid card. Like, I don't remember walking away going, that was shit. But yeah, look, I just felt like it was WCW light. Like, there was no storyline, there was no angles that they were playing. It was just like, yep, this is the tournament, these are the matches. They had all the ex WCW stars coming out. Like, Scott Steiner was there. I think Rick Steiner was there as well. Huh?
I actually thought Rove was sitting on Scott Steiner's shoulders, because we've had this convo before, and I think it was where you said that he actually came out on Nathan Jones's shoulders, but originally I thought it was Scott Steiner's.
Man, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near fucking Scott Steiner. That man has a short fuse.
Fuck, he's a goat.
It
Yeah,
was
we
Borash and Lawler, apparently. Apparently,
Ah,
Wrestling
there you go.
Regrets did a
Ooh.
review on it.
So, Sandy,
Aiden, what did he say about it? Did he say it was good or bad? Sorry. I'm just interested.
Road Warrior hauled off the tour towards last leg
Wow.
of a suspected heart attack. I saw him first.
Ooh.
093 against Demolition Smash in Wrestle Riot in Sydney. It was amazing. Can't wait for Dark Side of the Ring on Road Warriors. Yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be nuts.
That's going to be fucking next level, bro. But
Mhm.
Mark Cyrus, WWA was held at the Olympic facility there in Sydney. Yeah, I remember. That's out in Homebush.
What?
I
That's
toured
where
it
the
before.
He's
it opened
fucking
and I was
everywhere.
The-
Fuck no, man.
touring ones.
Well, I think next time he's in Australia, he's going to like hit us up at least, and we can all go to
Oh,
the
yeah.
wrestling show.
So we should.
Yeah, but no, the
You guys,
WWA show was a solid show, but like I said, it was a nothing show, if that makes sense, because they didn't have weekly television. They weren't doing angles. They were just
Well,
having
they'd all just
matches.
been fired. They were sort of, they'd all just been fined and lost their jobs, and so they're like, "Oh, let's congregate and make our own, new sort of faction and show." So they still had jobs. So, but I think we were so grateful to be receiving any overseas wrestling. We were just like, "We'll take it."
Absolutely.
But the
Yeah.
good thing about WWA is they actually gave a bit of a spotlight to Australian wrestlers. Like I remember Mark Mercedes was on he was on a show, he wrestled Rick Steiner, I believe. And I think he also had another match where he wrestled Crowbar. So, and Mark's he's retired now, but he's had a very long career, trained by the Malenkos. So for him to get that opportunity, it was great.
Absolutely. We'll move on. The first time we get WWE is the Global Warning event in 2002 in Melbourne, August 10th, 2002, Colonial Stadium. This event marked the return of WWE to Australia for the first time since 1986. Michael Cole and Taz recorded the commentary from WWE headquarters. The event featured 9 matches, including 3 dark matches. Main event, The Rock defeated Triple H and Brock Lesnar in a triple threat match to retain the WWE Undisputed Championship. Global Warning did not air on pay-per-view, but was released on home video. Some other notable matches, Bob Holly and Chavo defeated Billy and Chuck. The Un-Americans defeated Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio for the WWE Tag Team Championships, and Edge defeated Chris Jericho. I did not attend this. Did any of you guys attend this?
It was in Melbourne, so no.
Oh, fair enough, yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And
Unfortunately, no. Actually, unfortunately, this show and one of the next tours, my parents were like, hey, we can't fucking afford, because the tickets sold so quickly, especially the cheap ones. Like when you buy like $30 tickets, $50 tickets, they go out in 2 seconds. And like I was so late on the tickets, I was like, hey, can we go? And Dad's like, dude, we don't have $600 spent on tickets. So I'm like, all right. So I just remember crying, being like, fuck, why can't I go? I was this little 7 or 8 year old kid crying, but I was like, now I look back and go, I get it. Kind of sucks because I cannot fucking find it for the life of me anywhere. I have not been able to find the show anywhere.
But you know what the thing is, and it pisses me off, because around those times they weren't putting them on pay-per-view, right?
It's fucked.
So you knew, like I knew with that show, you ain't gonna see fucking a title change between
It's a
Rock.
glorified house show.
It's a fucking house show that they're recording, and that was the same for the WCW shows. Yeah, they filmed Nitro, but it wasn't live Nitro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was a pre-taped fucking Nitro. You know what I mean? Because otherwise they would have had to do it at
That's what I was gonna say. 11 in the fucking 11 in the morning. That's what kills us here. That's that's my biggest theory on why wrestling isn't as big as it should be. Is people just aren't gonna fucking watch it at 3 in the bloody morning.
But that's
you can watch it on delay now.
But that's the thing. Like I think if they do pay-per-views at times which are where they're performing in the country, that's what they need to do, because then like at 3 o'clock in the morning at a wrestling show here in Australia, you'd be like, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not doing that.
But that's because I'm awake at that time. So
yeah,
and I'm weird and different.
But I would love to have gone to that show. That would have been cool as fuck.
It would have been cool, man. Yeah.
So, what was that, Christy?
That I have the DVD of Global Warning.
I think
I still can't.
I picked it up recently.
I've got to get it.
I think Charles wants you to send him a.
Does someone do a DVD rip of it and just shoot me a fucking copy over? Because I have not seen that yet. Maybe I'll buy one for $1 on eBay.
Why not? Go for it.
I'll see if I can find it.
It's probably on the network,
It should, yeah, it should be somewhere in the neighborhood. Oh,
So
do a bit of digging.
From 2003 to current, we have had various WWE house show tours in Sydney, Adelaide, Melbourne, Perth, Brisbane, and Newcastle from both the Raw and the SmackDown brands. Some of these being the Raw WrestleMania Revenge Tour, SmackDown Road to WrestleMania 22, and SmackDown Live 2010, just to name a few. And also in 2016, we had NXT touring the East Coast, I think, Sydney and or Melbourne maybe, for a TV taping and some house show events. I went to a few of the WWE tours over the years, both here in Adelaide and trips to Melbourne. And I can remember seeing, it was just one of the events just after Kane Unmasked. And I wish I'd hunted this out. I don't know where I put it. I got a great photo. This is back in the film cartridge photo days. I got a great photo of Kane's pyro going off. And I was absolutely thrilled when I had it developed and saw that I got it. I had it up on a shelf for many years. I've still got it somewhere. But any of you guys go to any of these or the NXT show?
I went to probably about 8 to 10 of the house shows, like sort of when they first sort of started. I haven't been for about probably 6-7 years, so it was all the earlier ones. And I always went ringside. You don't know how much a ringside house show ticket in Australia for the first 10 rows was? $350. Yeah. Yes.
It's almost like they price themselves out of the fucking market.
Yeah, they're fucking idiots, man.
But then if you were the very next row after, that like if you were row 11, it was the next thing, and it was down to 185 or 180. So I always felt sorry for like row 10 and 11 because there was a huge gap in the pricing. But yeah, I absolutely love them. I found because they were house shows, you really had to be down the front to get everything because there were no video screens. There was no sort of you couldn't see what was going on further around, but you could hear the wrestlers talking to each other, and they played it up a bit more and stuff. But yeah, I have hundreds, if not probably over 1,000 photos taken on the old school with the rolls of film and then moving to digital. But yeah, I've got hundreds of photos because I would just go mad taking photos at the events. But yeah, you know, being ringside and like I was one of those people. Every time the wrestlers would walk around, you'd stand there like putting your hand out, going, "Touch me, touch me."
I'm never washing his hand.
Well, that
not in this fucking climate, brother.
I touched Batista's back, and my hand was covered in sweat. And I wasn't a really big Batista fan, but I did have the thing of going, do I want to wash you or not? I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, do I want to lick the sweat off my hand?
That's what I thought she was going to say.
What are you people think of me? No, it was like a I would have inhaled it.
That's both funny and gross.
But yeah, so like, you know, I've got many memories of like being up close. Like, you know, I never would have imagined being able to be a part of that world sort of thing. And I have this perfect photo of the Undertaker. With him, there's like, so I'm front row, and you've got the railing, and then you had the Undertaker. So there was no one else in the world standing between him and I. So for me, I was just like, my knees went weak when they started the like, entrance music hit. And I was just like, oh my God, it's him. And stuff. But I have this photo because he was fighting Randy Orton. Actually, it was I had a poster. Road to WrestleMania tour. So our main event was Mark Henry, Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, Undertaker. And Undertaker's beating the living shit out of Randy Orton. He's just like, yeah. And the photo I have is Undertaker, and he's like perfectly pulled back, and his fist is like ready to fly, and it's slightly blurred, and he's just like in full action mode directly in front of me. That's awesome. I had a dilemma because I was one of those people who wanted to try and touch as many wrestlers as I could. And I'm like,
you were wanting to put your hands on people, man. Like, fuck.
Jesus. Remind me not to come over near you.
Hi, Charles.
Fucking hell.
I
Come
felt-
straight to the fucking screen at me.
And I was like, I really want to touch the Undertaker, and I'm like, if I do, like, it was like, okay, do I touch him and risk him? Because he was in full like back forward, and I'm like, if I touch him, I'm gonna risk getting punched in the face and being evicted, or do I not touch him, sit here and enjoy, and just take as many photos as I can? I went for the photo route, so I didn't actually get to. I've never been able to touch him. He came out 3 times. I've seen him 3 times, but I got to touch Michelle McCool's hands. And I'm like, and those hands have been all over Undertaker.
And that's
So
been wrapped around something, yeah.
and I'm like, I got to touch him. Anyway, that's
You
not bad.
basically jacked him off.
Oh,
Charles.
all right.
I just meant just around his head and neck,
So did
Yeah,
Charles.
his head, yeah.
So yeah,
We're gonna get kicked off
I
YouTube
love
for this.
I love the shows. And once Taker stopped touring, I was sort of like, after a while, you've been to like 8 or 10 of them. They were really just the same. And I'm like, I've seen all these people over and over, and because it was, getting quite pricey, and my passion was still there, but not as much. It's sort of, thing. But I remember always walking into the Superdome, and you'd like get your tickets and your drinks, and when you'd enter the actual arena and just see all the stairs and the chairs and the people and this hugeness and the ring, and you always just got this like, great feeling to sort of rush over you, and I was just like, that was always memorable. And there was this, the last one, I didn't get the same feeling anymore, and I'm like, it's time. But yeah, no, it's me. Like, from a wrestling fan, Aussie fan, I loved them, even though they were house shows and we dressed off a bit. But anyway, I've been talking too long. Someone else talk. Someone else talk about licking other people.
Or not,
Well,
and we can
it's
just
not.
talk about wrestling. Jesus fucking Christ. But,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Like, we have been a little bit, we have missed out on some wrestling over the years, I think, in Australia. But I think now with like the internet and everything like that, marks like all of us can now get as much wrestling as we could possibly indulge ourselves with. I subscribe to the network. I subscribe to independent wrestling TV. And man, I sit down, and sometimes I'm like going through, I was like, I don't know what to watch. There's just so much to watch. And like, I just try and watch as much as I possibly can, and of everything. And I always try and find something new to watch, but I think that's probably why, like, I've always been that sort of so into it, because I had such little access that we had here in that time, that I had to go out and I had to like find out as much as I could. And when, holy fuck, internet, then I could read stories and dirt sheets and shit like that. So, yeah.
Like, what? The Big Show didn't pull down the Titantron?
Yeah.
I used to love going to those fucking shows though, but it was weird because I was still a kid when these shows were going on. Like, I didn't know what the fuck what a house show. I didn't know what a house show was. I just thought these were all the same. And like you said, Chrissy, the more you go to, the less and less interesting they are, because you realize that they're not. It's not, you hear the wrestlers talk about how it's their favorite shows to do because they don't have to worry about TV. But for the fans, it's kind of like, well, we know he's not going to lose the title. We know this isn't going to happen. But you go anyway because you're a fan. And like, I still remember the first one I ever went to. I remember we were Rod Laver Arena, second last row, right at the very, very back. My dad fucking hates wrestling. He does not like it, doesn't care about it. Me and my brother were sitting there. I would have been 8 or 9. My brother would have been 7. And we were there. We were loving it. And every 5 minutes, my dad would turn to the people next to us. Hey, can you look after my kids while I go outside for a smoke? I shit you not. He spent $50 on a ticket and probably watched 10 minutes of it. He watched nothing. But I didn't give a fuck because I saw Eddie Guerrero wrestle, the one and only time I ever got to see him wrestle. Don't give a fuck about anything else. I could have stopped watching wrestling then. I would have been happy.
But what about your dad to a complete stranger? Hey, just watch my kids for a second. I'm just going to go for a smoke.
Right.
And you know what? I'm not fucking kidding. I can still, if a police person asked me to help them sketch out what they look like, I could still tell you what they look like. And I'm telling you right now, they're probably in jail because they look like meth addicts. Not a fucking word of a lie. Greasy, very, very long hair, long black hair, long black trench coat at the top. And I was just like, I looked at them, I'm like,
and your dad made that judgment call to go, hey man, these guys look like they're decent enough guys to take
put it that way. He hates wrestling. It's either he either hates wrestling that much or he fucking hated us. One of the two. And I wouldn't put it past him to say both. But he wanted. But then, like, eventually he didn't get into wrestling, but he enjoyed taking us. And I think the last show we did before a recent one was he ended up getting us the 150, like the mid-level tickets. So we would like, if you're at the tennis, you would be on like you'd be in premium seats for the tennis, but obviously you've got the floor seats as well. So we were that one level up, and it was Edge and Cena in a cage match. And I just remember after that thinking, oh, you know, this is probably it for me. That was 2007, and I enjoyed it, but I was like, I can't watch this anymore. Like, I looked around the arena, I'm like, I'm about to go into high school, or I've just got to high school. I'm like, nah, I can't go to high school and, like, associate myself with some of these people. And they weren't bad people. They were just like, I was just like, I was a 13-year-old kid. I'm like, I can't do it. And then I realized pretty quickly.
Man, did
But that's what I was
times
gonna say.
change, man. Everyone, when I was in high school,
then-
loved wrestling, bro. Like,
I know,
remember,
dude. Go, no, go.
dude, I remember playing a game of rugby for my school and doing the rock bottom on some guy from the other team.
If I did that at high school, fuck, man. I couldn't, up until I was 17, I couldn't even mention the word wrestling around anyone because they'd be like, oi, fuck off. And then eventually I got to the point where I was like, oh, I don't fucking care. Like, I don't, whatever. I like wrestling. What are you going to, like, I don't care. It's not the end of the world.
You sound like you need a new friends.
Definitely.
I have none at the moment, so I'm looking for people. So
you got
attach myself to you guys.
that's why he found
That's
us.
true.
That's why he found us, bro. You know, like
I can remember.
Like, honestly,
I can remember going to TAFE back in it was 2004, 2005, I think it might have been,
Mhm.
and I was still big into wrestling back then. I wavered off the last few years, but I overheard one of the guys in the course talking to someone else about wrestling. So I just inserted myself right in the competition and was best match.
that's so good.
that's the thing, man.
I didn't
Like,
get any of that. None of that at school.
It's even funny. Like at my work, right at this coffee shop, is this guy that like manages it. I noticed he had a Bret Hart tattoo right on his arm, and I said, "Hey man, that's a cool Bret Hart tattoo." And then he's like, "Oh dude, I got like a fucking Hulk Hogan one here. I got Ultimate Warrior fucking here." Like all his tattoos. I was like, "Wow, have you heard of Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance?" No man, what's that? Well, dude, you're missing out, brother. Like you need to get on board of that shit. he joined right then and there.
Oh,
But no,
I have like
yeah, sorry, Charles.
I have two people in my life that watch wrestling. No, I was gonna, apart from you people, and it's my brother.
You
who
people, what do you
can't
mean?
have-
You what do you mean?
you people?
Yeah, wait,
Sorry.
hold on.
People like you, fucking people. No, my brother
So
who I
now
can't have a
you're laughing.
conversation
You
with.
think I'm a funny guy? You think I'm funny?
I'm
No
laughing
one-
at you, not
Like a clown?
Like I'm a
I
fucking
look at Piers
clown?
like a clown. Yeah, he's like the clown of MWA. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll move on. I
Ooh.
think we'll move on.
Right.
Next, we were scheduled to get TNA touring here in March of 2010 at the Burswood Dome in Western Australia. Talent that were due to confirm for the tour included AJ Styles, Beer Money, Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, and Velvet Sky. After a
Velvet
decent
Sky,
promotional pun.
Velvet Sky, yeah, she's great.
Good memories.
After a decent promotional push, the TNA Australian tour was cancelled in December 2009, with TNA stating that changes in the US TV production schedule made it necessary to postpone the tour.
Making
Yeah.
it never to happen.
Exactly, yeah.
Unfortunately,
That
fuck, that
sucked.
killed me.
That sucked. They actually were.
That was like,
They were not headhunting, but they were trying to recruit Australian wrestlers too.
yeah,
And that could have been
mate.
big.
That period of TNA is like like that's the fucking peak. Good
Yeah.
God, that roster, man. Jesus,
Like they had
that was so depressing.
Like, imagine if they came to Australia when they had like the main event Mafia, which was around.
I was
about 2009, 2010, I think that was. But that's like, fuck, man. Like, oh.
Well, like I don't know whether they like you just said, Andrew. They announced for Perth. I don't think I remember. I don't remember whether they announced at the time where they were going, or like I don't remember because they cancelled the show. I just remember talking to there was one teacher at school who loved wrestling, and we were like, hey, if they're coming to Melbourne, and like I mean I don't know if this is a creepy thing to do with a teacher or not. But he was like, we'll go to the show. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll go with you. Like we were planning on going to that fucking show, and unfortunately, it never happened. And I still remember where I was when we planned that, and it fucking kills me because that was like my peak. My second wave of wrestling was like 2004 and 2009.
I'm not going to say what I was going to say.
Go on.
Yeah, I know you're going to say something about it. You're going to say something about it.
I was waiting for it.
I'm not even gonna.
I'm here to answer any questions you've got.
No.
You got straight A's in that class.
Actually, funny fact, I fucking failed miserably and got sent to special math after that. That was unfortunate. Even wrestling couldn't save me.
You failed.
I never really gotten too deep with TNA though. Like I remember when I first started watching TNA, we had at least over here in America, we had to order it on pay-per-view for $8.99 every Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And I was around with like Elix Skipper and Amazing Red and Shark Boy, like those days. Yeah. And then after like maybe 2 years after that, I let it go, man. I couldn't watch it no more. I lost interest. So TNA wasn't big for me.
They had like the early days, we got those pay-per-views free on our pay TV. Like that was just free on one of the channels. And I remember watching it, man. They had some solid talent, man. Like especially in those early days, man. Ken Shamrock though, like crowning him as the NWA champion, I was like, really? But like back then, like on that first show, who else did they have that was established besides Jeff Jarrett? They had I think later on they got Road Dogg and Raven and stuff like that. But those the first shows, it took them a while.
So the biggest problem with Ken Shamrock at that point wasn't that it was Ken Shamrock, it's those fucking terrible whatever they were mutton chops that he had going on. Not good. Good.
So anyway, the next part of the topic, WWE Super Showdown, October 6, 2018 at the MCG in Melbourne. It was televised live as a pay-per-view. Some matches included Becky versus Charlotte for the women's title, The Shield versus Dolph Braun and Drew McIntyre, and Triple H defeating The Undertaker with Kane and HBK respectively in the corners. And of course, Australia's own Buddy Murphy winning the Cruiserweight title from Cedric Alexander. And I can tell you from being there, that was a hell of a moment for us Aussies.
That was the pop of the night.
Absolutely right.
That was fucked.
Wait, when Buddy Murphy made his ring entrance in Melbourne, Australia, his hometown, that place erupted like it was fucking Stone Cold Steve Austin, man. Have you seen the show, Mikey?
I did.
Like when he came out and they said from Melbourne, Australia, the place went fucking nuts. Like I think they just, dude, like even if he wasn't from Melbourne and he was like from Brisbane, say Melbourne, fucking get a pop. But but like man, that moment for Buddy Murphy to experience that in his hometown and that for that sort of thing, like even for him to then go over and win a WWE title and to be the first Australian to win a singles title.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think he was actually the first Australian to hold a title in WWE with the NXT tag team.
By then?
No. He this was years before the Iconics.
This is the only problem with the only problem with Wrestling Australia. I literally lived 10 minutes from where he was trained and did most of his shows. I hadn't fucking heard of him until that day. And that's obviously if I watched the product, I'd know a little bit more about him, but like that's how little wrestling still is in regards to like Australian pop culture. He literally fucking lived like in my area, and I didn't know who the fuck he was. And not only that, even when he was signed, I don't think I ever saw an article about it. It took him winning a title in Melbourne on a fucking pay-per-view for him to get any recognition over here. So I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, but
It's crazy.
Also, you know, our newspapers aren't covering professional wrestling. You know what I mean? Like,
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think.
But also as well, like as Mikey said earlier, professional wrestling's been a staple for a lot of American families. Where you know, for us or the older people, not you millennials, like Charles there, but you know, we had
Don't
time.
be jealous that I'm under 30.
Please.
Set you on fire.
Yeah, but the thing is, Jesus. But the thing is, well, because we were like me, Andrew, and Christy went a time where we couldn't have wrestling on a regular basis. We couldn't follow wrestling. You know, we were watching VHS tapes that were like 6 to 12 months old. You know,
and we couldn't order off shop phone. It wasn't until I don't know what mid-2000s we were able to actually order stuff from Shop Zone with huge.
Didn't they have an Australian branch here for some time?
Oz Shop.
Yeah, they did for a little while.
A lot later on,
that was trash though. Jesus Christ! Would like a 3-year-old T-shirt for 3 times the price.
It was $50.
Fucking hell. Ugh.
$5 program. But yeah, so in our prime days of when, like, you know, from the Attitude Era and all that, like, we could get the magazines here in most news agents, and you'd always have the catalog on the inside of all the merchandise, and it was like such a killer because you're like, I want that and that and that and that. They wouldn't ship it here. And, you know, then later on, you know, when they did start it, but it was still like, yeah, the shipping was super pricey. The dollar was never great to convert, and like, you know, I've done some shipments over the years, but yeah, I would have loved it a lot earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Poor Australia.
Anyway, in closing, some other notable touring events. We get the World Series Wrestling with the likes of Cody Rhodes has appeared for them.
Nick Aldis,
Joey
Brian Cage.
Ryan, maybe that's what I was thinking of. Brian.
Tessa.
Tessa, yeah.
Lucha Bros.
Yeah, some good big names that they've managed to bring in. And they were due to have an event here in June or July, I think it was.
Yeah. 2 in Melbourne, 1 in Sydney.
Yeah, with all this Corona stuff, they've postponed it. They're thinking of something in November, I think, from memory. We've also had a couple of tours of Tommy Dreamer and the House of Hardcore. They've come to Adelaide. I wasn't able to go see them, unfortunately. Any of you guys? No?
I missed that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And we also had a New Japan tour in 2018.
2.
Mm.
There was another one that came back again, I think last year or the year before.
Okay.
Yeah. I missed both of them.
I want to go to the next New Japan show. It comes to Australia that's for damn sure. You know, like I love New Japan. I can't get enough of that. You know, I'm actually thinking about getting the network.
I don't know how you managed to fit it all in.
Yeah, I can't fucking fit any of it in.
And I got 2 kids under 5. Right?
And a wife. And kind of a job.
And a wife that doesn't like wrestling. So, you know, I make it I make it work. All right.
That you do. Anyway, any final thoughts or memories from any of you guys regarding wrestling here in Australia?
Well, look, I got into watching a lot of Australian independent wrestling, watching the IWA. A friend of mine at the time was a wrestler for them, and I got to go and see quite a few shows. I've seen quite a few AWF shows as well. And, you know, once this COVID-19 is finished, my plan for the remainder of 2020 is to see as much live wrestling as possible. I want to get back out there and support the Australian promotions and start going to their shows.
Absolutely, because you never know who'll end up in the big leagues.
Exactly.
Fuck yeah.
And that will lead us kind of into next week's topic, which will be Australians in the American wrestling companies like Buddy Murphy, who we mentioned, Rhea Ripley from my hometown here in Adelaide, South Australia, Bushwhackers, and the Moondogs.
Bushwhackers were New Zealanders.
Oh, we'll count them as brothers,
Yeah,
man.
well, far lap.
We still everyone say they're out off anyway.
Yeah,
Because-
we
Pavlova.
took Crowded
We'll
House,
take it
so
all.
why not take the Bushwhackers?
Fuck it. It's just another state, really.
Absolutely. So, Christy, Piers, Mikey, and Charles, thank you for joining me. And
problem.
tune in again this time
Thank you.
next week.
And make sure
For-
you tune in at 12 p.m. USA Eastern, 2 a.m. Australian time, as me and the Chuckster are going to sit down and interview the most controversial man in professional wrestling history, Vince Russo.
You.
Absolutely. And of course, tune
Yeah.
in
It's gonna
next
be it's gonna be
Wednesday.
fun.
Yeah, it
Tune in
is.
next Wednesday, Wrestling 2020 with Brood. That is what
It'll
time
be
is it again?
it's going to be a bit of a special one. I won't say too much now, but keep an eye out in MWA for the announcements. But yeah, it's going to be a special 2020 wrestling this week. Special.
Is it because I'm going to be on it?
Special. What was that, Charles?
Is it because I'm going to be on it?
Actually,
I'm joking.
you know, I've had to kick you.
Yeah, I figured, and that'll be the last time I fucking talk to you.
Charles got cut.
Fuck
Anyway,
you, I'm out of here now.
Yeah, stay tuned for announcements.
So thank you guys for joining me, and thank you for all who have watched, and tune in next week for more Friendly Fire. Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye.
So, catch us later.